Niklsun here, and welcome to Coming Soon Movie News with Niklsun. I'm your host, and on this show, every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, we'll be going over all of the day's movie news, as well as going over what it means for the production in general, such as casting decisions, trailer announcements, director announcements, things like that. So, without any further ado, let's get started with today's Hot Topics. So with my first topic today, I wanted to give a little bit of a recap as to what's been going on at the Toronto International Film Festival, specifically which films to be looking out for when they do arrive in theaters. So Toronto International Film Festival is the unofficial start date, effectively, of the award season. So several of the films that are going to be in contention for the major awards contenders, such as the Oscars or anything else other than that, like the Critics' Choice Awards and things like that, TIFF is really where things really start to unravel and where we really start to get to see the first good samplings of what are going to be in the running. So one of the mentions, or one of the films that I'm going to be talking about here is not necessarily going to be an awards contender. It's just one that more so just wowed people in terms of what it did and what people were initially expecting versus what they got. So the first film out of the four, I'm going to be talking about four films today. So the first one is Jason Reitman's new film, Men, Women, and Children. Now this movie stars Adam Sandler and Jennifer Garner, Ansel Elgort. Who else is in it? Rosemary DeWitt. People remember her from Mad Men. This movie, a lot of people have been talking about it as the return to the path that Jason Reitman was previously on. He stepped off of it a little bit with Labor Day because Labor Day was not very well received. It was a slower film. It didn't really know what it wanted to be, whether it was a thriller, whether it was a drama, whether it just was kind of a mess. And so this has been people's hope for him to be his return to form. Well, it looks as though we're going to be getting that. This movie is from the reviews that I've read about the film, it is a stellar example of how people interact with one another, specifically families, and whether or not parents actually know what's going on with their kids, whether or not kids really do understand their parents, which for the most part, people do understand that these are completely different generational gaps and there are going to be inconsistencies. But what this does now is it infuses the digital age into that conversation. And it really takes hold of the fact that with the advent of the internet and social media and things like that, the communication barrier has been getting larger and larger, and what is it going to take to actually break it down, and showcasing how people really do hide what they really are feeling through social media, through the so-called in a dark room scenario where you don't have anybody who's going to get mad back at you. You can feel as much as you want through social media. And this movie apparently really takes a very hard critiquing look at this way of engaging with your family and really hits home. And a lot of the praise has been going out to not only Ansel Elgort, who apparently steals the movie. He's probably one of the better characters in the film, but a surprising turn by Adam Sandler, who has two films actually premiering at TIFF. The other one is The Cobbler, which is another film that I'm interested to see and hear more about because I want to see Adam Sandler return to dramatic film. I absolutely love Reign Over Me. That movie, like the character development that he portrayed in that movie, why haven't we seen more dramatic roles from him? I mean, that Punch Drunk Love, you have Spanglish, which was more of a dramedy than anything else, but I mean, still, he shows a lot of dramatic range, especially in Reign Over Me. Reign Over Me, he should have been nominated for several awards. I think he was. I don't think he got any of the big ones. I don't think he got like the Golden Globes or the Academy Awards or the Broadcast Critics Association. But I do know that he got a lot of recognition for that role, and hopefully this film, I don't think he will get any actual awards recognition, but I think this will open up the doors and lead him down a better path for his career, because I'm sick and tired of seeing Adam Sandler in these schlock comedies, the same thing over and over and over again. I really do want to see him in something else, which is why I'm glad we're getting both Men, Women, and Children and The Cobbler. But yeah, that's one to definitely check out, and Men, Women, and Children will be opening up nationwide on October 17th. The next film I want to talk about is one that I've talked about on here previously. Actually, the next two are. The first one up is Foxcatcher. Now, Foxcatcher is Bennett Miller's new film starring Steve Carell, Channing Tatum, and Mark Ruffalo. It just premiered, I believe, either last night or this morning at TIFF. It's already premiered at Cannes and already at Telluride. And now this is its third pretty much standing ovation. This has been the one to beat so far this year. They say it's almost a shoe-in for Steve Carell, as well as a surprising turn by Channing Tatum in what is likely to be an awards contending role. This movie has been on my radar for a while. It was supposed to debut over a year ago. It was supposed to come out in 2013, and then it got delayed to 2014, made more awards rounds, and just built up the buzz about it, and now it's going to be coming out November 14th. So I'm very excited about this, but it's about the rising career of Matt, I believe it's Matt Schultz. I may be incorrect on his name, but he's played by Channing Tatum, and his brother is a world-renowned athlete, like wrestler, and they meet this guy named John DuPont. And John DuPont is this like eccentric millionaire rich guy who just wants to see these guys succeed, but he has ulterior motives, and he's played by Steve Carell. So this has been one that's been on my radar for a long time. I cannot wait to check it out, and everything I've been hearing about it. It is a slower paced film, but it is a very introspective character study, and I'm very excited to check this one out. The next film I want to talk about on here is the new Jake Gyllenhaal movie, Nightcrawler. Now, I just talked about, maybe about 2 weeks ago, about these trailers. I've been holding off on it because the sound of the movie just, for one reason or another, it did not click with me. I didn't like the synopsis. It didn't seem like a movie that I was going to really be interested in. Well, then I saw the trailer. And that movie, the kinetic energy of that trailer mixed with the unhinged performance that it looked like Jake Gyllenhaal was going to be giving, meant that immediately jumped to one of my top 10 anticipated movies of the year. Well, it looks like it definitely deserves a spot on there because it has been getting rave reviews. Jake Gyllenhaal now is the standout for, as far as I'm aware, he is now the clear-cut standout for the Best Actor Academy Award. And you can definitely see why, especially in the trailer. He plays so off-kilter and different and weird and unruly and just literal, like, bottom-of-the-barrel desperation. You can really see that in his character, and I'm very much anticipating this movie. I cannot wait to see it. The movie opens up wide release, surprisingly, on Halloween, October 31st, so definitely keep your eyes out for that one. The last one is one that I'm surprised is not getting a Halloween release, and that is Kevin Smith's Tusk. Now, these are all the films that I had planned to catch at TIFF. For one reason or another, I was unable to attend. So these were all the films that I was really looking forward to, and Tusk was the one that I was the most skeptical about. The other three, I was pretty sure were going to knock it out of the park. Tusk was one that I felt was going to be a very big risk because Kevin Smith is a niche director. He is one who has his own fan following, and not a lot of other people really do like his material. Well, Tusk came out to everybody saying in their reviews that this is the most messed up film that they've ever seen, but in a good way. They said it's fun in the sense of its energy, in the sense of its pacing, in the sense of its content, but not necessarily because of the themes and things that it actually unveils. It's basically Human Centipede for the modern age. Even though Human Centipede was only made a few years ago, but this is more so a movie that can be seen, I think, by more people than Human Centipede. It takes a different viewpoint on this, and also apparently there's a big reveal with Johnny Depp's character in the movie. Now, it's not a spoiler because I've already talked about this on here before, that Johnny Depp would be appearing in the film because he is starring in Kevin Smith's next film, which is a sequel of sorts. It's more so part 2 of his True North trilogy is what he's calling it. So the first one was Tusk, where he goes up to Canada, and that's where he meets Michael Parks' character. And then with Yoga Hosers, which is the second one, Guy Lapointe, is a man from Montreal who basically has to go and try to stop this apocalyptic event from happening. It just sounds wild and crazy, and I'm really excited for that, but I'm so excited the fact that Tusk was so well received. Tusk is going to open up in... I don't believe it's going to be getting a wide release, but it will be opening up in more theaters on September 19th. So definitely be on the lookout for that. So those are the 4 films that I've chosen to update for TIFF. As the week goes on, I will be updating more titles as they do come out. If you guys have any suggestions or anything like that about films that are premiering at TIFF or that have premiered at TIFF in the past that you would like to have be talked about on the show, let me know in the comment section below or email me at movienewswithniklsun@gmail.com. And I'll be more than happy to talk about it on the show. So until we get more information about TIFF or any more titles come out, I will definitely update you guys on here. This next story here is in regards to Avengers Age of Ultron. In particular, our first good look at Vision, who's going to be played by Paul Bettany in the movie. As you can see here, the character is a much more modern update, but the color patterns, just the overall, especially the cape, I'm very happy to see the capes there. But everything about the costume is so much pulled from the source material. This is a very good adaptation. This is probably one of the closest adaptations that we've got. And Marvel has been hitting it out of the park with their costumes. Because if you look back on a lot of different versions of costumes in movies, I'm not just talking Marvel, I'm talking anything. They have tried to shear away from what it looks like on the page. Because for the most part, it won't work in live action. It just won't. It either does not make sense, or the proportions are all wrong. And half the time, I mean, these are based on artistically drawn human beings, which means that their proportions are already out of whack. And I'm not just talking about the female characters. I'm talking about, there was one image that I actually retweeted about a week or two ago, and I think it had to do with Superman. And Superman's chest came out like this far. Like he was standing like this, and it came out like that and then went down. Like you can't have a real human being look like that. So I mean, you know, they for the most part have had to update it, but with Marvel Studios, they have kept very close to their comic book counterparts, specifically the Ultimates versions, because those were designed, I believe, with a cinematic intention. Because the Ultimates came out, and then like 6 years later, or 8 years later, they started with the movies, which means the plans had been there. And when they started with the movies, they said, you know what, we're going to go with the Ultimates characters, at least their cosmetic appearance, as opposed to the actual details of the characters, because some of the Ultimates do have different backstories and do have different origins per se than the regular comics characters do. So they've really kind of been picking and choosing which aspects they want to keep. And for the look, I definitely agree that the Ultimates is the way to go. They just look more badass. They look more streamlined. They don't look like leotards. You know, they're much better. And this costume, as you can see, is a very good adaptation. And I'm very excited to see what Paul Bettany does with this role, because this character is unlike anything we've seen so far. He's, with the exception of the almost impenetrable strength, he is essentially Marvel's Superman. He can make himself more dense, which means that he's just a lot harder to hit or to kill. He can levitate, he can fly, he can move things with his mind. Like, I mean, the guy's got so many powers, it's ridiculous. He's essentially an X-Men team all to himself. So I'm really excited to see what he looks like in the movie. And also, expect the first trailer for Avengers Age of Ultron to officially drop online, most likely by the end of October. Looking back on it, that's generally when all of the trailers for a May release for a Marvel film have dropped, like Iron Man 3, Avengers. I believe Iron Man 2's first trailer also dropped in about October. So the majority of films they've had come out in May have always had a trailer drop in October. So definitely check back next month to see if we've got the new trailer. I'm hoping that we do. I'm hoping that it's either the sizzle reel that they showed at Comic-Con, but if not, I hope it's something similar, and I hope it's not like what we got at the end credits of Captain America 1, where it's just a couple of quick flashes for 40 seconds and then the title rolls up. If they do that, I mean, yeah, it will be something. Absolutely. 100% it will be something. But to me, that's a little bit of a slap in the face. I mean, yes, give the people who went out of their way to get tickets, to get hotels at Comic-Con, and to wait in line for that, yes, give them the exclusivity of seeing it first for the first few months, or the first 6 months. Look at what Guardians of the Galaxy did. Guardians of the Galaxy's first trailer, with the exception of a few shots, was the finished version of the trailer they showed at Comic-Con like 7.5 months prior. So I have a feeling that Avengers is going to do the same thing. Maybe they'll cut it down a little bit, because from my understanding, it was like a 3-minute trailer, and I don't think they'll do that for their first trailer. They will trim it down. It'll probably be 1.5 to 2 minutes. But yeah, hopefully next month we're going to be getting our first shot at that. So if we do get more information about this topic, I will definitely update you guys on here. This next topic here is about the upcoming requel, or reboot, sequel, slash uppercase, lowercase, whatever you want to call it, for the new Terminator film, Terminator Genisys. Now, we report, or I don't even know if I actually even did cover this, because it was just a small story, but Terminator Genisys actually updated its title about a month ago, maybe a month and a half ago. They didn't change it. It's still Terminator Genisys, but as you can see behind me, they changed the spelling of it. And it's Genisys, or however you want to pronounce it. Now, a lot of people have had problems with this, just the changing, or the fact of changing it just to change it. I have two theories on this. One, I mean, the first theory didn't really stick because people weren't really talking about it all that much after the fact. But I said that the reason they did this is because everybody's talking about it, to get publicity about this property, to get people talking about this project. Because up until that point, people really had kind of forgotten that there was a new Terminator film coming out, even though Arnold Schwarzenegger is back. But my theory on the title change outside of that was that it actually is, and I could be way off base with this, but it's actually a hybrid of two words. It's genetic systems. And I know that genetic is Genetic, but I think it has to deal with genetic systems, and that's going to be the new or the original version of Cyberdyne Systems, because this world is effectively it's a reboot of sorts, but it's taking place, from what we understand, we haven't got the official synopsis yet for the film, but from my understanding, it takes place during the events of both Terminator and Terminator 2 from different viewpoints, with Arnold Schwarzenegger playing an older T-800. The organic skin on the outside of the exoskeleton is natural skin, like it behaves the same way that skin would, which means that it would age just as much as regular human skin would. So his Terminator is actually sent back to around the time that the original Terminator is sent back to kill Sarah Connor, and he has to go back and try to save her. I'm really interested to see how confusing this movie is going to get, because it sounds like it's going to be that way, but I'm really intrigued by it. I love the Terminator films. It's one of those franchises that really just does open up your thinking, and just opens up everything about what movies can be, just your imagination and what could be down that path. And it's always been something that's very fascinating to me. Well, now it looks like the studio has a lot of confidence in this property. Either that, or they're just trying to build more confidence for Terminator Genisys. And that is that they've announced 2 release dates for follow-ups. So we have, and they've called it this, they've said Terminator 2, it's probably just the second iteration of Terminator Genisys, will be coming out on May 19th, 2017. So that gives them just under 2 full years until the sequel comes out. But then the third movie will be out on June 29th, 2018. So what we can take away from this is, one, they have greenlit sequels for the films. We know that they are currently working on, if they're not working on pre-production yet, they're just working on the stories for it. But they will be filmed back to back. You can't have 2 movies of this size coming out a year apart from one another, not shooting back to back. So we know that they're coming back, or we know that they're going to be shooting that film back to back. There is no word on whether or not Arnold Schwarzenegger or any of the other cast members, such as Emilia Clarke, Jason Clarke, or Jay Courtney, will be returning. I'm assuming that would be a spoiler of sorts for the film. I mean, Emilia Clarke will probably return. Sarah Connor's not going to die, unless this is going to completely reboot the entire franchise. I doubt that they're going to kill off Sarah Connor. They could kill off John Connor, who's played by Jason Clarke. So if they said that Emilia Clarke, Jai Courtney, and Arnold Schwarzenegger are returning, that means pretty sure that Jason Clarke's not coming back because he's dead. But on top of that as well, this is all going to depend on whether or not Terminator Genisys is successful. They've given it 2 years. Not a year, not 3 years. They've given it 2 years. So that means that if the movie comes out and it just makes its money back, or makes $50 million profit, they're probably not going to move forward with both. They may still move forward with another one. They may still move forward with Terminator 2 or 6 or whatever you want to call it. But they will not move forward with shooting 2 more films back to back. It's just too much of a risk financially. If you didn't really make a big splash with your first film, don't try to oversaturate your own market, because you're only going to infuriate people who are investing in you to try to get them to invest in another property down the line. If you see that it was not a success, but you try to find the reasons as to why it wasn't a success and implement those into your sequel, then yes, you could do a second one. But outside of that, they're probably not going to do it. I do have when they first announced that Arnold was coming back, I thought, okay, this is a step in the right direction because Terminator Salvation did not succeed. It mainly didn't succeed because of Christian Bale's demands. When he signed on to the role, John Connor was not the main character in the movie. John Connor was almost a glorified cameo. He just had that sequence about 3/4 of the way through the film where he had Marcus kind of tied up, where he was suspended over that chasm type thing, or that tunnel. But the main character in the movie was Marcus, and you were not going to find out until near the end of the movie that he was a Terminator. And Christian Bale signed on. He said, you know what, if I'm going to play this role, you're going to make him the main character. And so that's why they added in a lot more of these sequences. That's why if you watch the movie, it appears as though it's 2 films, because it really is. There's Terminator Salvation, and then there is the additional sequences that they wrote and filmed for Christian Bale, which I always hated because I never liked his interpretation of that character anyway. He was Batman, essentially. He just used his Batman voice the whole time. And that kind of sounded Southern. I'm sorry about that. It was like a slack-jawed yokel. Like Sling Blade. No, but this movie, I originally thought that they were going on the right path with this because of bringing Arnold back. But then you look at Arnold's past movies that have come out, even in the Expendables films, he has not had a hit since he came back. I mean, the studio has to see that. They have to look at it and see, okay, even in this year alone, Sabotage came out and it bombed. And then you have Expendables 3 came out and it bombed. Well, actually, I don't even know if it actually bombed. I think it may have turned a profit, but barely. Like, it bombed domestically. That's for damn sure. And I don't know if I really don't know what to make of this news, outside of the fact that they are either trying to generate buzz for Terminator Genisys or showcasing the fact that they have a lot of faith in that movie by announcing these 2 sequels. I mean, only time will tell. If we get more information about this on here, though, I will definitely update you guys on here. For this last topic, I'm going to do something a little different. Normally, I do save the user questions until every Friday episode, but this question was asked to me on the weekend, and I just couldn't resist. It's a really good question. So this question comes to us from Joseph Flint. Joseph was the co-host that I had on my Comic-Con recap episode. So for those of you who have been wondering where Joe is, he will be coming back. Don't you worry about that. It's just going to take scheduling, both with not just his own schedule, but with mine as well, because I do have a full-time job outside of this. So whether or not I do have the time to incorporate a co-host, as well as the editing and all this kind of stuff, he will be back on. Don't fret. It's just going to take a little bit of time to get the scheduling all lined up. So Joe asks, how is X-Men Origins Wolverine canon to the X-Men franchise? For those of you who have not seen Days of Future Past, this is a little bit of a spoiler. Not really. You kind of figured that this was going to happen anyway. But with X-Men Days of Future Past essentially wiping the slate clean, he didn't understand exactly how X-Men Origins fit into everything. So in Origins, Wolverine kills his real father, making Sabretooth his half-brother on his mother's side. How are they both mutants if the mutant gene is passed on through the father? Did she sleep with 2 mutants by chance, or did the writers just screw up? Well, there's a couple of things with this. First off, yes, the writers screwed up. 2, Origins is no longer part of the continuity or canon of the series. Let me try to back up here. So, Origins was based off of a comic book. Like, the actual storyline of the movie was based off of a comic book. In that comic book, there's a character named Dog Logan. Like, he's James Howlett, and there's a character who is the son of their groundskeeper, I believe, who's named Thomas Logan, who you see in the movie. And Dog Logan is his son, and he and James become friends, and throughout the course of everything, it plays very similar to X-Men Origins Wolverine, at least in the beginning, where he first gets his claws out when his father, what he thought was his biological father, gets killed, and then he goes up and he stabs the Tom Logan, and then runs off. But in the original comic, it was Dog Logan. It wasn't Sabretooth. They changed that for the movie. So Sabretooth originally, he was not a mutant character. From as far as I'm remembering, it's been a while. I did a little bit of research, but it's been a while since I have read that comic. But as far as I know, the original comic was not created or did not did not let people know that it was Sabretooth. It was not intended to be Sabretooth. They just changed that for the movie. So laying that to rest, no. This was just a screw up on the writers. I mean, X-Men Origins Wolverine, X-Men Origins Wolverine in general was just a screw up on the writers' part. That movie had a lot of problems with it. Everything from the main problem that movie had was it felt like it was made by a committee. And there's a reason for that. A lot of people will give, Sozi director, directed Ender's Game. He directed Wolverine. I'm blanking on his name. He was brought on because he directed Sozi. And Sozi was, as far as I'm aware, it was an Academy Award nominated film. So they brought, I almost had his name. I can see his face. Anyway, they brought him on to direct the film, and it originally had a great script that was a rated R script. It was a more hardcore Wolverine film, but the studio felt that even though it was going to be an X-Men film, or a Wolverine film, sorry, they wanted it to feel like an X-Men film. They didn't want it to feel like a standalone film. So that's why they brought in all these other mutants. That's why they brought in people like Sabretooth. They brought in Gambit. They brought in Deadpool for the most part. I mean, that was a terrible adaptation of Deadpool. I love the fact that even on the poster behind me, you have Lynn Collins on there, even though her character in the movie wasn't really utilized all that well at all. I thought she was better utilized in John Carter. Thought she was a better actress in that. But then after those two movies bombed, she never really went anywhere, which is really sad because I thought that she was a great actress. But there are a lot of other posters out there that you can see that have Emma Frost on them. And Emma Frost is in the movie for all of 2 minutes. And I thought that was kind of funny. But no, the movie was just a hot mess no matter which way you look at it. But Days of Future Past has effectively, even though it only went back to the 70s, it has effectively erased everything else that's happened in the X-Men cinematic franchise, excluding X-Men First Class. That is the only other movie that fits into the canon. Because even with that movie, like when you look back on the first X-Men movie, Professor Xavier never once mentions the fact that he was friends with Raven, with Mystique. Yet he talks about that right at the beginning of X-Men Days of Future Past, before they've changed anything. So that movie, even coming in, all it did was it was a new timeline, but they brought the original cast in. It was a way for them to do a reboot already, and then change the events of the other films within that movie, while still maintaining the original trilogy actors. And I even tweeted this out a while ago. I'm really happy about the fact that we can now comment on the X-Men's 1, 2, and 3 as original trilogy. Very much in the same vein as Star Wars. And I said in the tweet, I'm not saying X-Men is like Star Wars, so don't jump all over me. But it is interesting that we can now talk about it as there's original trilogy, and then there's all this new stuff. So I always thought that that was really cool. But to answer your question, X-Men Days of Future Past has effectively wiped out everything with the exception of X-Men First Class. Everything has been erased. Everything is going to start brand new with the X-Men Apocalypse that comes out in 2016. Now, as far as I know, X-Men Apocalypse, they've said they're going to be trying to bring back some original characters from the original trilogy while also introducing some new ones. We already know we're getting Wolverine back. Speculation has been that Professor Xavier, like Patrick Stewart himself, will be coming back. I don't see that happening. I don't know exactly which characters I can see them coming in with. It's a real question mark, but I am very much anticipating this movie, especially because those bogus allegations against Bryan Singer have now been dropped, which means, as far as I know, he is back on full steam ahead with X-Men Apocalypse. I think they have officially announced him as director, but I'm not quite sure on that. But yeah, that movie comes out in 2016. Very much anticipating that movie, and very glad that Days of Future Past wiped the slate clean, because I had a lot of problems with a lot of the other films. Even with The Wolverine was never a sequel to X-Men Origins Wolverine. It was just another standalone Wolverine movie, telling his ever-going and ongoing story. It had really nothing to do with X-Men Origins Wolverine. That was almost its own film. Pretty much just its own film. So yeah, with Days of Future Past wiping the slate clean, I'm very much excited to see what Fox has in store for us with the continuation of the X-Men franchise. But if we get more information about this topic, I will definitely update you guys on here. Well, that'll about do it for us here on Coming Soon Movie News with Niklsun. Thank you so much for watching. You guys have been a great audience. Go ahead and click the subscribe button there in the bottom corner. You can get updates whenever we post a new video. You can also follow me on Twitter at Niklsun, Niklsun, for all of your movie updates. And you can also like us on our Facebook page at facebook.com/movie news with Niklsun. If you guys have a question or a comment or topic or anything like that that you would like to have discussed on our show, go ahead and put a comment in the comment section or email us at movienewswithniklsun@gmail.com, and I'll usually answer those on every Friday episode. And without any further ado, you guys enjoy the rest of your day. Take care.